Shalom, giving honor and praise unto Yah, the creator and maker of heaven and earth. This is part 5 of Deuteronomy 28, verse 68. Now, one of the things we want to point out is, let's go, brothers and sisters, into the book of Josephus. We're going to go to Josephus, book 12, verse 1. So that way we can gain some understanding concerning this matter here. It says this: But when Ptolemy had taken a great many captives, both from the mountainous parts of Judea, and from the places about Jerusalem and Samaria, and the places near about Mount Gerizim, he led them all into Egypt, and settled them there. And as he knew that the people of Jerusalem were most faithful in observation of oaths and covenants, and this from the answer they made to Alexander, when he sent an embassage to them after he had beaten Darius in battle. So basically what's being stated right here in Josephus, brothers and sisters, is that you had it to where Ptolemy, this is speaking about who they call Ptolemy Soter or Ptolemy the First. He took Israelites and settled them in the land of Egypt. This is how some, not all, but this is how some Israelites wound up being in what they call Alexandria in the land of Egypt. No, the point in me mentioning that is because the people who like to sit there and state that Deuteronomy 28 from verse 52 to verse 68, namely in this case, in this discussion being in verse 68, is talking about the situation that happened with Titus. How do you explain then what happened with Ptolemy? Because Ptolemy was before Titus. Ptolemy the First, he ruled in Egypt after the era of Alexander, or should I say Alexander the Fourth ruled in Egypt. So you had Alexander, then you had Alexander the Fourth, then you had Ptolemy the First, who was ruling in Egypt. So it's not too hard to figure out exactly what in the world was going on. Now, in another part concerning the book of Josephus, if we will, I want to sit there because these are some of the quotes they tried to sit there and make and talking about that. That is talking about the Israelites going in Deuteronomy 28, verse 68, talking about the literal land of Egypt. If you're saying it's talking about Titus, how then do you explain Josephus saying that Ptolemy brought Israelites into the land of Egypt as well? You can't do it, you see, because Titus was centuries after Ptolemy. Now, in the book of Josephus, in what they call the Wars of the Jews, we are in book 6, chapter 9, verse 1 and verse 2. And we're going to read selected parts of it. And it says this: Now, when Titus had come into the upper city, he admired not only some of the other places of strength in it, but particularly those strong towers which the tyrants in their mad conduct had relinquished. For when he saw their solid altitude, and the largeness of their several stones, and the exactness of their joints, as also how great was their breadth, and how extensive their length, he expressed himself after the manner, saying, We have certainly had God for our assistant in this war, and it was none other than God who ejected the Jews out of these fortifications. For what could the hands of men or any machines do toward overthrowing these towers? Another part reads as follows concerning the situation with Titus and the Israelites. And as for the rest of the multitude that were above 17 years old, he put them into bonds and sent them to the Egyptian mines. Titus also sent a great number into the provinces as a present to them, that they might be destroyed upon their theaters, and by the sword, and by the wild beasts. But those that were under 17 years old of age were sold as slaves. In another part in the book of Josephus, the Wars of the Jews, we are in chapter 6, verse 4. It says this: Now this vast multitude is indeed collected out of the remote places, but the entire nation was now shut up by fate as in a prison, and the Roman army encompassed the city when it was crowded with inhabitants. Accordingly, the multitude of those therein perished exceeded all the destructions that either men or God had brought upon the world. For to speak only of what was publicly known, the Romans slew some of them, Some were carried captives, and others were made search for underground. And when they had found, and when they found where they were, they broke up the ground and slew all of them there. There also were found slain among them 2,000 persons, partly by their own hands and partly by one another, but chiefly destroyed by the famine. Another part before you get into the next subject. So he was reserved for the triumph, and that to be slain, as was John condemned to perpetual imprisonment. This is speaking about the situation with the Hasmoneans. And now the Romans had set fire to the extreme parts of the city and burnt them down and entirely demolished its walls. So now, one of the things to point out, if you've been following along and reading, in verse 2, the wars of the Jews in the book of Josephus, we are in book 6, chapter 9, verse 2. Partly, let's one more time, let's read this. And for the rest of the multitude that were above 17 years old, he put them into bonds and sent them to the Egyptian mines. Titus also sent a great number into the provinces as a present to them, that they might be destroyed upon their theaters. Now, if you know anything about the Roman Empire, when it says their provinces, that's wherever Rome decided to have conquered. Because if to get into a little bit of history, Rome took over the provinces to a great extent that Greece had. And Greece had Alexandria in Egypt. So by the time you get after the era of Mark Antony and Cleopatra, Titus is after that situation with that. So Egypt was already by that point, after Mark Antony lost to Octavian, you had it to where Egypt was a Roman province. Now Titus in history is after the situation that we spoke of with Octavian of Rome. Now, when it says that Titus sent them to the Egyptian mines, we also see, brothers and sisters, that he sent them to the Roman provinces in the same portion in Josephus. So to the individuals who like to sit there and teach that Deuteronomy 28 verse 68 is only talking about Romans and Titus sending Israelites to the literal land of Egypt and northern Africa, how then do you explain the Israelites also being sent to the Roman provinces that they may be destroyed in their theaters? Because that's exactly what Titus did, who was the son of Vespasian, and the successors after Titus. They would sit there and put Israelites out there and have lions attack them. They will sit there and put a man between two horses and beat the horses and have the man ripped apart. Those are some of the things that the Romans would do to the house of Israel in the land of Rome. That's why by the time now, that being the situation with 66 to 73 AD, by the time you get to 139 AD and everything of that sort, what you're dealing with at that era is you had it to where the Roman emperors were trying to get the Israelites out of Rome that Titus and other them had brought into Rome, because you find Romans saying they want to be part of the nation of Israel and follow the Israelite customs. So that right there, or what they call making proselytes in the land of Italy, when you go into history. So that automatically shows good and well, brothers and sisters, that is not only talking about the Israelites being sent into the literal land of Egypt by Titus in Deuteronomy 28 from verse 52 to verse 68. We got to remember that the Israelite prophet Moshe, or Moses, distinctly said that all these curses shall come upon thee and shall pursue and overtake thee. So whatever those curses were is going to keep on following you as long as you were not keeping the commandments of the Most High. That's what it's talking about. So as stated, those who attempt to state that it's not talking about the Atlantic slave trade, you have a lot of explaining to do. Because if you're saying it's talking about Rome and Titus sent Israelites to other places besides just the literal land of Egypt. So you may want to get your studying up. All right, not to sound arrogant or so forth or so on. Now let's conclude, brothers and sisters, in this particular portion right here. Now, remember we were speaking about the word besiege, and Matzor means besiege and siege and so forth and so on. And Matzor being the root of the word Matzrayim in Hebrew. Okay, now, in Deuteronomy 28, verse 45, we're going to conclude. It says this, and let's read. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed. Because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Most High thy King, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. So we see that we cannot just say that Deuteronomy 28 is only talking about one set time. Deuteronomy 28 verse 15 through verse 19 says, but it shall come to pass, if you will not hearken unto the voice of the Most High thy King, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. Cursed shalt thou be in a city, and cursed shalt thou be in a field. Cursed shall be thy basket and thy store. Cursed shall be the fruit of thy body, the fruit of thy land, the increase of thy kind, and the flocks of thy sheep. Cursed shalt thou be when thou comest in, and cursed shalt thou be when thou goest out. The Most High shall send upon thee cursing, vexation, and rebuke, and all that you set your hand unto for to do, until thou be destroyed, until thou perish quickly, because of the wickedness of thy doings, whereby thou hast forsaken me. Deuteronomy 28, verse 20, as just read. These above mentioned curses and the others that were mentioned in the same chapter is known to the Israelites to come upon them and overtake them, and we got to ask who fits that. According to some who state upon YouTube, the curses of Deuteronomy 28 from verse 52 to verse 68 is only talking about the Romans and the Israelites, and emphasize on the Romans as if it cannot be any other people inclusive. There is a couple of problems with what is being presented about that. Deuteronomy 28 verse 21 once again says, and the pestilence shall cleave unto thee until you are consumed from off the land, whither you go to possess. Now, those familiar with the Israelite history know that the Israelites had problems with nations from being driven out from their land from before the time of the Roman Empire coming upon the children of Israel, right? Pompey, in the year 63 BCE, made Jerusalem a Roman province. So that was actually before the situation with Titus, okay? Let us look also in ancient Israel in 2 Kings chapter 8, verse 11. And he settled his countenance steadfastly until he was ashamed, and a man of the Most High wept. And Hazael said, why weepest thou, my Lord? And he answered, because I know the evil that thou wilt do unto the children of Israel. Their strongholds, which is their walls, their strongholds wilt thou set on fire, and their young men wilt thou slay with the sword. Didn't we read about that in Josephus too? About the young people being slain with the sword. This is now talking about the book of 2 Kings 8. So these curses shall come upon thee and shall pursue thee and overtake thee. So don't sit there and try to state that it's only talking about Israel and Rome with Titus. All right? Their strongholds wilt thou set on fire, and their young men wilt thou slay with the sword. And thou wilt dash their children and rip up their women with child. And Hazael said, but what, is thy servant a dog that he should do such a great thing? And Elisha answered, the Most High have shown me that thou shalt be king over Syria. And he departed from Elisha and came to his master, who said unto him, what said Elisha unto thee? And he answered, he told me that thou shouldest surely recover. Let us look at 2 Kings chapter 10, verse 32. In those days the Most High began to cut Israel short, and Hazael smote them in the coast of Israel, from Jordan eastward, all the land of Galilee, the Gadites and the Reubenites and the Manassites. The Gadites, the Reubenites, and the Manassites. From Aroer, which is over by the river Arnon, even Galilee and Bashan. So now, really? Are you going to say that Deuteronomy 28 and the curses that came upon and overtook the Israelites was started with the Romans? The word siege literally means the operation of reducing and capturing a fortified place by surrounding it, cutting off supplies, undermining, bringing guns to bear, bombing, and other offensive operations. Siege implies surrounding and cutting communications and usually includes direct assaults on its defense. Siege equals besiege. Siege mentioned happening to the Israelites before the time of the Romans. You can read on your own accord. Go in 2 Chronicles 32 verse 10, Ezekiel chapter 4 verse 3, 2 Kings 17 verse 5, 24 verse 11, 25 verse 2, and Jeremiah chapter 39 verse 1. So that right there just goes to show you that, as it says in Deuteronomy 28:45, all these curses shall come upon thee and pursue and overtake thee. It is not talking about the Romans. When you're trying to say that Deuteronomy 28 verse 68 is only talking about the Romans, you have a very difficult time to explain that with Titus, because Titus sent Israelites to other places besides just the literal land of Egypt. The people taken in captivity by way of ship, the Matzorayim, the double distress with a yoke of iron on their neck, hungry, thirsty, and naked that Deuteronomy 28 talk about is the people you see right here. Shalom.